It's decision day for a very important Auburn Target.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Joining me on this very important day for Auburn football recruiting, Brian Smith, host of The Portal. That's Locked On's recruiting, transfer portal, NIL show. We'll talk about fall camp right on the horizon. It's so close. We can almost feel it, as well as another commit who is, or potential commit, a recruit that's committing soon somewhere. Hopefully it's the Auburn Tigers, but it's decision day for Jaquez Wilkes, a guy who we've been talking about for so stinking long, Brian. A guy, an in-state product who's very, very talented. He's going to play somewhere on somebody's front seven, and he's probably going to be a difference maker.
Yeah, he plays at Wadley High School, plays running back, middle linebacker in high school, but most think he'll grow into an edge.
Yeah.
He's 240 some pounds right now from what I've heard. I don't know what he's listed on 24/7, but the person I talked to knows the family, so I'll go with them. And he's a kid that has played basketball throughout his high school career. So we knew he was going to gain weight as soon as hoops was done. He's got one more year of prep football left. Good luck to the schools in 1A trying to tackle him. That's kind of a joke, but he's a grown man playing high school football, and he dominates. So this is the kind of kid that you have to keep in state if you're going to win games. They don't build a lot of guys like Wilkes, so it would be a very nice pickup for the Tigers.
Yeah, 247 has him at 6'4", 220, but you talked to him recently, and he's weighing a lot more than that, right?
Yeah, he's like 245, 250, somewhere in that range. Which
makes more sense as far as the conversation we're having, as far as him developing into, a guy who could rush the passer and take on offensive tackles every single down at the next level. That seems to make a lot more sense. And also just shows how much weight his frame could potentially carry if there's that much variance as far as, maybe where he did weigh when he interviewed, 247 or whoever kind of put it into their database.
Yeah, I don't worry about weights with kids like this because college weight programs, man, like he could be 275 as a senior wherever he's playing college ball. Yeah, and his frame will hold it.
So it's always interesting. Some of these kids, they'll just say, hey, I'm announcing, or hey, I'm announcing between two schools. And then sometimes the number goes from 2 to 3, 3 to 4, and then in this case, 4 to 5. So his final 5, Auburn, Texas A&M, which seems to be the main two that like contenders. Miami, Jason Taylor's recruiting him. He seems to like Jason Taylor a lot. Alabama's on there, and who's the 5th? Florida State is the 5th one.
Yeah. Kind
of give me your quick assessment of each of these schools outside of Auburn.
I don't think Bama or Florida State are really in it, barring something that I don't know about.
Okay.
Miami's the wild card. It's the Aggies or the Tigers. So we'll see where that ends up. But A&M's done a great job of recruiting this part of the country this year. They've got kids committed all over the place. Do not discount them for this play or anybody else. A&M's really making a concerted effort.
Yeah, there's some speculation on like how full A&M's room is, and in this class, is that going to help Auburn or not? I don't think Wilkes is afraid of competition or anything like that. Yeah. But I mean, as a coach and with NIL and rev sharing, like you can't load up every room as much as you would like, maybe as much as you used to be able to do. So like there is some roster management strategy and resource management that you've got to worry about. And so that is kind of some of the speculation and discussion with the Aggies here. Let me ask you something. So a few weeks ago, or maybe it's now a month ago, and it's just kind of the conversation hasn't really stopped, especially with the SEC Media Days last week. But, Auburn's been pretty public with how they're handling rev share. They're going to be conservative until they're proven otherwise. And then they've said that they're ready to pivot if that's the move. Since that's happened, they've kind of gained a little bit of momentum. Do you think that these guys are just trusting the process and what Hugh Freeze and John Cohen and whoever it is from Auburn talking to them? Or do you think Auburn maybe has pivoted some even before that August 1st date that we've kind of all thrown out there?
I would imagine there's been some conversations on what they would offer, at least speaking with the high school coaches or parents or something. I don't know how that works exactly, because you don't want to tell a kid until it's official. But at the same time, this is dead space. Like, you've got to do something in this meantime. So it's kind of the awkward in between. I just don't know how you do it, because this is a one-shot deal. So we know if they're going to have teeth with whether or not the NIL clearinghouse is really going to hold the mandate on how much money goes towards the cap from the collectives and all that. You're in a holding pattern, but that's valuable time. So I would imagine Auburn has some kind of strategy, and they probably met about it a bunch internally. What's the best plan? Is it different for every kid? Do we need one mainstream idea?
Yeah.
I would think you have to float something like, if this goes the way it should, we're going to stick with this, but we need to see it. And if it doesn't, we're going to make a different offer to you. They can say something as basic as that and not give numbers, but there's a lot of different speculation on that. And Auburn's not the only school going this route, but it's still one of the few. Most schools are, from what I can tell, could really care less what this legislation is.
Yeah. And I mean, I predicted this when, it happened, but like, I'm kind of expecting Auburn to pivot sometime next month, but we'll see. Maybe they're right. Maybe they're right. And boy, if they are right, that would be huge for them, but we'll see. We'll see if that happens. So I think Wilkes picks Auburn Monday afternoon. Where are you with this?
Well, I mean, Auburn could have been the easy pick a long time ago, and he didn't, and he wanted to take his trips and all that.
True.
I'm curious to see if he's done with his decision, no matter what it is, whenever he picks school A, B, or C.
Yeah.
But right now, I think it'll be Auburn. I'm just curious if it stays Auburn, because there's so many schools still going to come after him. I think he'll get some more offers this season, too. He plays 1A football. He's harder to grade, but I've seen him play football, and I've seen him play basketball. Like, that's not a normal kid. That is a really unique guy. I bet he gets some more offers. So if Auburn or A&M, whoever gets him, can keep him from taking any more visits, they'd be ahead of the curve. But I'm picking Auburn.
Yeah. I'm there with you. If assuming he does pick Auburn, do you feel like they've done enough to kind of shift the momentum in their favor, Brian? I mean, this will be, the third or fourth fairly respectable player that you've come on here and talked highly of in a row, or are they still just so far behind the main teams that they're going against it doesn't even matter?
Well, I mean, at the end of this year, barring something changing, it's just being honest, they're going to have lost ground to Georgia and Bama further. Those two classes are going to be top three.
Right.
That's tough, but we need to see what happens with the NIL clearinghouse before we know exactly how that works. And my bigger question is, how does Auburn recruit in the trenches? Like Bama, and especially like Georgia's got like 7 or 8 defensive linemen in this class. Getting Wilson Zaire was massive. He's the most important guy in the class. I don't care what his ranking is. He's the most important guy in the class.
Love that.
You're not going to beat Georgia and Bama without tackles anyway, but like the way those schools are recruiting in the trenches is different. So that's really the question, though. Again, it still goes back to that. Until I see what the clearinghouse does, I don't know what kind of players Auburn's going to flip, but I'd say right now they're probably going to flip 4 or 5 guys just because of all the stuff with the NIL.
Yeah, right. And then, I mean, some of the chatter about like it being a smaller class anyway, if they only take 15 or 16 guys, and it's like, well, they're kind of close. They're kind of close. So yeah, I don't know.
They're going to be very picky, but the guys you add need to be dudes. And Freeze knows that. If you're taking a smaller class, you be selective with everything. So, I don't know who it'll be, but I imagine they'll be really good players.
Yeah, I mean, it feels better than it did for sure. If Wilkes goes that direction, if he doesn't, then we're going to have a tougher conversation later the week when you come on again, and that won't be a fun one. But hopefully it'll be good. Hey, there's another kid that we think super important for this class that's making his decision soon. So that's next, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Game Time is the best place to buy tickets. Doesn't matter what it is, if it's sports, if it's baseball, golf is in full swing. If you want to do that, it's summer, concert season all around. Brian, can you imagine buying tickets anywhere other than with our friends at Game Time?
No, not really. It's one of the easier apps I've actually used.
100%. 100%. Yeah, you can buy a ticket in like 2 clicks. It's fantastic. Take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege. for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Deron Parks, an offensive lineman that you and I have talked about a ton. You were really like the first recruiting guy to talk about Parks to Auburn because you had an interview with him at one of the camps. I assume it's like an Under Armour camp or something. And you sent me the audio of the interview with him. And like, you're just like, yeah, so who's recruiting you? And then he like would list all the schools, be like, then he wouldn't quit talking about how great Auburn is and how much he loved Auburn and the coaching staff at Auburn. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And then Ohio State kind of got in the mix. And so like, what are you hearing about Deron Parks? And then what's the date for his decision? I know you mentioned it before we clicked record.
He is a kid that's going to be committing on Saturday, barring something unforeseen, but kids do change their dates. That's the 26th of this month. Coming up into this week. So kid out of Cardinal Mooney High School, Sarasota, Florida. He is massive. Zach is happy that his grocery bill is not included with Deron. He's 340 or so. And he's a kid that played guard or tackle. He was really good at the Orlando Under Armour camp. And after that, he got more offers to schools like Ohio State, became more involved, etc. And his list is pretty broad. I mean, Kentucky's in there, Auburn's in there, Florida State. It's pretty broad. But right now, the question is, will Ohio State take it? They've got a really good O-line class. I don't know what their circumstance is. Do they still want him? I don't know. The only thing that I will say is, if Auburn loses another kid to Kentucky, we're going to have that discussion because
that wouldn't be fun. That'd be crazy. Yeah, obviously you're referring to Denarius Gray, who flipped from Auburn to Kentucky, which I'm still trying to wrap my head around. That's when I really started to get a little panicked about the recruiting situation. But yeah, surely he's not picking Kentucky over Auburn and Ohio State, but like Denarius Gray did. So I don't know.
Yeah, Denarius Gray had an offer from Ohio State at one point too. So
yeah, the Ohio State offer was the first offer where he like tweeted about where I'm like, okay. Like, let's see what happens. Let's see what happens with that. But no, he went to Kentucky of all places, which is crazy. Yeah, I mean, with offensive line, I'm curious to see how many they ideally would want to take. I mean, you mentioned last segment that they're going to have to flip 4 or 5 guys, which I agree. And that number may be higher, Brian. I mean, if they really turn it on and like, do the whole, like, we'll match other people's payments thing. Like, and I think they have the ability to do that. I wonder how many offensive linemen they would ideally take. I mean, you think about like flip candidates, like Mpuma, I think has to be a flip candidate. Like, I don't think that's a crazy thing to say. And then, you just kind of look at the guys that they currently have already committed. I don't know. Would they take 5 offensive linemen? I mean, I'm not against it, but obviously Zaire, Nikal Heppy, and then Parker Pritchett is another one. And so, like, if they get Deron Parks and then possibly flip another guy, like, would they be fine with 5 offensive linemen? Is that the number in your mind?
I think the 5th guy would have to be a tackle or an elite player. Like Mpoma as a kid, just as an example, has extreme high upside. He's a Chicago area kid, but he's like 6'7".
And he went to Nebraska over Auburn for folks who missed that.
Yeah, he's a kid that a bunch of schools looked at. Michigan, Notre Dame, Ohio State. Everybody was looking at him, somewhere after him, some weren't. He's a little raw, but like the frame is off the charts.
Yeah. Right.
So
that's the eye test for sure.
So that's one of those kids you're like, maybe if he has a really good start to this season, a lot of coaches want to see film of like the first 3 games, especially positions like quarterback and offensive tackle where it's a developmental spot.
Yeah.
That could be a kid that Auburn tries to flip. And there could be some guy from Georgia State committed that it just has a great year, and like Georgia, Auburn, and Alabama and Florida State. There's going to be some kids like that too. That happens every year. So I don't know who else, but I'm just going to throw something out. Zach and I talked about a million times last year how Auburn did a tremendous job in state. This year has been the polar opposite. Not that for lack of trying, they just haven't been successful. If they don't flip at least one kid in state, I'd be surprised. I don't know which one. I don't know where he's going to be committed, but Freeze just really seems to want to sign kids from the Yellowhammer State, which I agree with. If you're Auburn, you should always have that objective. They've only got like 1 or 2 kids, and Wilkes would be another, but of the top,
I mean, who could that even be?
I don't know.
I mean, I don't think Sidarian Morgan is there. I don't think they get Anthony Jones. Bodney Cleveland, maybe.
Bodney's an interesting one, definitely.
Then Marquez Daniel, the receiver that committed to Florida. That's probably the most likely one.
Yep. But that's part of it. And then any kid that's from the state of Georgia, they've done a tremendous job of recruiting Georgia. I would not be surprised if that continued. Maybe they get a kid that's committed to Clemson or North Carolina or whatever. That's something else to look at. So I think
I haven't I didn't tell you we were going to talk about this guy, but I know you're high on him. Jase Matthews.
Oh my gosh. Freakazoid.
Yeah, I mean, he's committing soon, right? And he's got August 8th is his date.
That is one of the freakiest kids that I've ever seen.
Yeah, you said he's the most athletic receiver in this class. I don't know if you still believe that, but you said it about a month ago when we talked about him. But he's got Auburn in his final four: LSU, Auburn, Texas A&M, and Ole Miss. Auburn felt really good about his chances a month or two ago, and since then things have changed, obviously. But I mean, you talk about like getting momentum. If you get this kid, it's like, oh, okay, like you feel. I mean, this guy's a game changer.
To put it in perspective athletically, Deuce Knight told me, because they grew up pretty close together. He said that he was doing dunks between his legs in 9th grade.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, if you can't drive a car yet, but you can do that, you're a little bit different cat. Anyway, his high school film's unbelievable. He dominates competition that he should, but he outruns everybody, outjumps everybody. His hand-eye is incredible. He's an impact player wherever he goes. My biggest question for him is, what's the deciding factor? I don't know Jase. Never been around him and talked to him. But like Ole Miss is getting their head handed to it in state. I wonder if they might pony up for him because they're getting destroyed. They've kind of done the same thing that Auburn has with the NIL. At some point, you have to stop the bleeding. So I'm kind of curious there. Yeah. LSU is easy. Like any receiver, look at it. I get it. I get it. Yeah. A&M would be the disappointing one to lose somebody to because their passing game is anemic. So
yeah, like you said, it depends on the kid. Like LSU, they have Tristan Key still committed, who's most people's number one receiver in this class. Sometimes that attracts other elite receivers. Sometimes other guys, want to be the guy. So it just kind of depends on Jase, and
right.
Only folks that are super close to him are going to really know that.
Yeah, I think that's a kid though that could change your class. And remember, that date is long enough into it. Auburn might have this speculation on my part.
That's a good point.
Is this going to change their offer? Because we have no precedent.
You'll have a week's worth of information. Is that enough? I'm having a hard time grasping if that's fully enough or not. But
from my perspective, just being around coaches my life, a lot of the stuff that we get publicly is like a week old.
Good point.
So like what the colleges, like they talk to people at the NCAA, off the record, beat writers, other coaches from other schools, they all know each other. Yeah. Like Auburn and Alabama fans don't like each other, but I guarantee you Auburn and Alabama have coaches that talk to each other. That's just how it works. You're going to know, okay, man, we've got 3 of these deals we don't think are getting through from what they've told us. We've got 2. You'll have an idea. And once the Spurs start flying, you can figure it out. And Auburn also just needs to make some momentum. Come hell, come high water. They got to get somebody that's a splash. Jase Matthews is phenomenal talent. So he's the kind of guy that would be as good an athlete as Cam Coleman, not quite as tall. He's just as good an athlete in a little different way. Like he's probably got more shape to him, to be honest. But, and he's a freak. Like I'd love to see a dunk competition between Cam and Jase, to be honest. But that's another.
That'd be great. That'd be great. Hopefully it happens on Auburn's campus. That'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. Fall camp is coming soon, and I can't remember a more important fall camp for Auburn football in like recent memory. Let's speculate on what could make this fall camp a success. That's next, right here on Locked On Auburn. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. So Auburn starts camp at the end of the month. I believe it's the last Tuesday. I believe it's the 29th is what Hugh Freeze said. I mean, obviously everything about this season is so crucial, Brian. And this fall camp, I think, is a little bit different because you're going to have to use maybe more of fall camp to prep for the first game than I think you normally would. I mean, normally you're opening with a team that you can kind of use as a tune-up to get things going. But this fall camp, you've got to rev it up. You've got to rev it up and be crisp and ready or you're going to lose to Baylor in Waco if you're not prepared enough. This seems to be a little bit more important as far as like, you've got to be ready day one, or it might be too late.
I think the biggest advantage is that Auburn finally has some depth on the offensive and defensive lines. Obviously, the media is not going to get a whole lot of information from the scrimmages and all that. But even during the practices, when they hit, Auburn can afford to be a little more physical, work on tackling. They've got more depth now. The same approach 2 years ago could have been cataclysmic.
Yeah.
So I think especially the offensive line, Connor Wu, et cetera, they should be in a situation where they can be physical with Baylor from the outset. You and I have talked about that game a number of times off the air. My biggest question is, can Baylor's front handle Auburn with just inside zone, gap, trap, quarterback lead? I know those are all generic, but if Baylor struggles, that game's over because Auburn's got better talent on the perimeter overall.
I think a lot of the aspects that impact the passing game outside of quarterback, which I know sounds ridiculous, but I think you get what I'm saying. Like when you talk about trench play on either side, I'd give Auburn the advantage. And when you talk about receivers versus corners, I give Auburn the advantage on both sides of the football. And like, that's a big deal to be better on both sides of the line and both sides, at corner and receiver. Like, I think that's going to be enough if you don't shoot yourself in the foot and you're prepared.
Yeah. I know when I say this word, it's going to make a lot of people close their eyes. The only way I think they really lose this game is if they have turnovers. That's what's killed them the last couple of years.
Yeah.
They protect the football. They've got a better roster than Baylor. Baylor's got a couple superstar players. Their running back and the receiver are dudes.
Yeah. And I think their quarterback's pretty good. I was kind of low on him started the offseason, but the more I look at him, I'm like, no, Sawyer Robertson's good. He's a good player.
Yeah. Now, can they protect him? And can they run the ball on 1st and 10 when everybody in the stadium knows they want to run the ball? Again, I like Auburn in the trenches a little better, and I don't think they got anybody to guard Cam, et cetera, one-on-one consistently. I think Auburn should win the big play battle there.
Yeah. Nobody wants to talk about, everyone wants to talk about how Baylor finished the regular season, but nobody wants to talk about what they did in the bowl game against LSU. And I do think that's an important aspect of this. And then when you look at who Baylor beat to, finish that streak, I'm not taking anything away from them. They don't control who's on their schedule when it comes to conference play, but none of the teams they played down the stretch were any good at all. And once again, you took care of business, you didn't lay an egg, which is, good for Baylor. I think Baylor's a good team. I'm not trying to downplay it a ton, but I do think some of this is possibly a little bit inflated when you look at what happened, because then they played LSU and then it's like, did they even show up for that game?
That was weird. That was one of the bowl games. I'm like, LSU historically, if they're not in a major big,
you would think it usually means so much for the Big 12. We get to stick it to the SEC, and the SEC is like, oh, we didn't make the playoff, whatever. And that's not really what happened.
That game gave me pause, but Dave Aranda's tenure in Waco has been like that. It has been a Dow Joneser, up and down. They'll beat somebody. You're like, oh, okay, maybe Baylor's got something going. And then they lay an egg like the LSU. Like, how are you not mentally into LSU? And Dave coached there.
That's true.
That's weird, man. So
yeah, and they the offense was fine. They scored 31 points or whatever, but I think if Auburn can get out to a fast start and take that crowd out of it and Jackson Arnold get some confidence, I think this could go really, really well. So
that's one thing that many Auburn fans may not have paid attention. Baylor's got a pretty nice home crowd. It gets pretty loud there. It's not like going to Alabama or Georgia, but it's still
it's going to be it's a Friday night game. None of these players have ever played there. The vast majority, I'm sure somebody who transferred in has played there, but it's going to be a weird thing that you can only do so much to prepare for.
Yeah, that's a big part of it too. First games, man, on the road. I know college coaches don't want to say it, but they probably all have home games for first games if they could, because of that factor. You just don't know if things go wrong and it's on the road, does your team mentally go in the toilet? So
yeah, right.
But again, you just look at the position matchups, barring turnovers. Auburn is just a better football team. And Baylor should be one of the top 5 teams in the Big 12, but that league just doesn't have the same trench play. That's to me the biggest difference. So
yeah, and that's another interesting, like, opinions on Baylor. And you can say the same for Auburn to some extent, but opinions on Baylor all over the place. Like, some people think like, oh yeah, Baylor's the best team in the Big 12, and then others are like, yeah, like when Locked On put out their Big 12 power rankings, like, Baylor was a lot lower than I was expecting. And Cam Stewart was livid, host of Locked On Baylor. So that was fun. That was fun to see. But yeah, so we'll see. And we'll talk about this game a million more times before the start of the season. But never too early to talk about actual games because we're not that far away, which is very, very fun. Brian, how can people check out everything you've got going on?
Locked On the portal, doing previews of teams, doing previews of recruits, position breakdowns. Check out Locked On the portal.
Yep. Hey, please like the video, please subscribe, and we will see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.